Hello, my dear students. Welcome to BioDD channel. Let us continue with multiple choice question paper for IGCSE Biology 0610. The paper code is 22 and the series is October-November 2025. So let's go for question number 19. Question number 19 says a person looks at a distant object in a dark area. So, distant object in a dark area. The second part of the question says the person then moves to a bright area and looks at a near object. Interesting question. Why? Because the question is in two parts. The first part is saying some situation which is being changed in the second part. Now, what is the question actually? Which statement describes some of the changes that takes place in the person's eyes? Now, if we look at the amount of the terminology or words given in the question itself or given in the options themselves, for a second, I think we can get confused that so many things we have to rule out, for example. But we need to act smartly. We have to focus on this statement. This one. Which statement describes some of the changes that take place in the person's eyes. So we do not have to focus so much on the first part. This part, we do not have to focus so much. We have to focus on the second part more. Like the person is moving to a bright area and he is looking at a near object. Now, let us recall for a while the structure of the eye and the pupil reflex and the accommodation of the light or focusing of the light. So I'm showing you for a while your book, your IGCSE biology book. You can see when we are in the bright light, the small darker area, which we say pupil, gets smaller. And this is called pupil reflex or iris reflex, for example, sometimes. When we are in the dim light, then you can very well see that the pupil, the middle darker area, if you can see, becomes dilated, becomes bigger. So this is the main difference between bright light and the dim light. Now, one more thing I want to tell you, this is called focusing of the light. So focusing of the light. There is one more concept which is being asked in this question, which is called accommodation of light or adjusting the focus. We call it accommodation of light or adjusting of the focus. Now, what happens over there? Here, if you see, if you are watching something far away, then look at the shape of your lens. The shape of the lens gets thinner. It gets thinner. Why? Because it is pulled by your suspensory ligaments. I'm not going into so much detail, otherwise we'll be delayed with other multiple choice questions. So, but anyways, I would advise you that you should revisit the topic. So when you are seeing something distant object, for example, your lens is becomes thin. If you are seeing something nearby object, so look at the shape of the lens. Look at the shape of the lens. It becomes thicker. It becomes bulged out like a both sides double convex shape, for example. Now, these two things we have to focus, for example. And one more thing, let me show you, for example. If you see, the light is being passed through the cornea, pupil, lens, and it is just falling on the retina to make the image. Now, what is the options. What are the options, for example? As I said, we have to focus more on the changes. It means we have to see the person is moving to a bright light. Okay. In bright light, as I told you, the pupil has to be constricted and you are watching some near object. If you're watching near object, for example, then your lens should be thicker. Your lens has to be thicker. It means we're a bit going opposite to the situation. Like, for example, usually we say that in dim light, we are watching something nearby object because it's near, it's dark, so we need to make it near. And if it's bright light or a good sunlight, then we can see very far object. But here the situation is a bit different, and we have to focus on that we have to focus on the bright area, which has to give us the constriction of the pupil, and the near object where the lens should be thick. Let's see. A. The A option says the circular muscle of the iris contract and the pupil constricts. Okay. Bright area, of course, the pupil constricts. The ciliary muscle relax and the lens gets thicker. If you revisit the topic, when the ciliary muscle relaxes, the lens does not get thicker, it gets thinner. This is wrong. Wrong. It does not get thicker, it gets thinner. Okay, so eliminate A. Number B, the radial muscles of the iris relax, circular muscles contract, the pupil constricts. Yeah, that's true. The pupil constricts. That's true. And the lens gets thinner. No, we want, because you're watching something near, you don't want thinner. You do not want thinner lens. You need to get thicker lens. So eliminated. Fine. Number C, the radial muscles of the iris relax, pupil constrict. Of course, we need that. Now, the second part of this option says the ciliary muscle contract and the lens gets thicker. Very well. This we wanted these two things. These two things, the pupil constriction and the lens thickness, we wanted because we are moving to bright light. Let me change the color for a while. Okay, yeah. For example, you are moving to bright light and you are watching something near. So you need two things, pupil constriction and the lens thicker. So most probably C, but still there is one more option, D, which we need to rule out. Okay, let's go. Excuse me for doing this changing of the colors, because in my view, it becomes a better understanding when we underline and make the things rule out. Anyways, the radial muscles of the iris relax. When the radial muscles relax, the pupil dilates. No, it does not happen. When the radial muscle relax, the pupil constricts. So here it's wrong. Of course, if here it's wrong, the remaining part will be wrong automatically. So the ciliary muscle relax and the lens gets thicker. So automatically, because we are wrong over here, so we will not go ahead so much. Wrong. So your correct option will be C. This much time you do not have to take while sitting in the real exams. You have to be, that's what you have to practice again and again so that you spend less time. But why I'm taking more time with you? Because just trying to make you understand that these kind of questions, they need your attention and practice. You need to practice a lot, my dear, what to do. Question number 20 says, which effect does adrenaline have on, adrenaline, the hormone, which is called fight and flight hormone, and it is secreted when you are in a stressful situation. So adrenaline have on blood glucose concentration and pulse rate. This should be a super easy question for you, my dear. Why? Because adrenaline actually increases your heart rate, your pulse rate, your blood glucose concentration, because it is actually produced in stressful or dangerous situation or unusual situations, for example. So your blood glucose concentration should increase, of course. For this question, I'm just going very direct because it's a very much easy question. So increase and pulse rate increase. Okay, so your blood glucose concentration, why it gets increased? Because it has to supply a lot of glucose to produce a lot of energy, either to fight or fly away from there, or run away from there. I should say run away from there. And pulse rate also increases because the heart rate also increases. So a lot much energy is needed in this situation, so that your muscles, they work much better to fight or flight. Anyways, okay. Question number 21. The diagram shows an experiment using two wheat shoot tips, X and Y. Okay, so X and Y. There are two shoot tips. One is X, one is Y. If you see, X is normal, but Y seems that something is cut and it is entitled as shoot tip removed, for example. The tip is removed, for example. After 2 days in even light means light is coming from all around. So it's even light, not from one side or not from the other side. It's all around coming. If you see, X has grown, but Y, if you compare this part and if you compare this diagram, so you can see X is grown in length, Y is not grown in length. Now, what is the question? Basically, which statement is supported by the evidence provided by this experiment? Excuse me. Okay. Oxygen moves through the plant by osmosis. We should rule out. Why? Osmosis is not the correct word for oxygen moving through the plant. Why? Because osmosis is specifically for water movement through the cell surface membrane from one cell to the other. So, of course, A, excluded. B, oxygen is made in the shoot tip. Usually, we know that, yes. But still, C and D we need to rule out. Oxygen is unequally distributed in response to light. Unequally distributed. No, this cannot be the case. Why? Because if you look at this part, sunlight is like it is even. Even means the sunlight is not restricted on one side. It's from all sides. It's not unequally distribution of the light. No. So rule out. Oxygen inhibits cell elongation. This is totally contrary to the main definition of oxygen, which says oxygen helps in cell elongation or cell stretching. So wrong. So you go for B. Okay. Question number 22. Which action would help to limit the development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria? Antibiotic resistance in bacteria. So which one is limiting the development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria? Okay, that's true that it is using antibiotics. And if you see A, B, C, D, all are starting with using antibiotics, but definitely we have to read the full options. Use antibiotics frequently to prevent infection. Frequently, not at all. Because if you use antibiotics frequently, the bacteria is clever, will be changing frequently, and it will be a superbug, which we do not want. Use antibiotics only to treat bacterial infections. Yes, true. Because antibiotics we use for bacterial infections. But C and D, we have to rule out. Use antibiotics to treat all types of infections. I don't think so. And you also don't think so. No. Use antibiotics to treat only viral infections. Not at all. It's not for viruses. No. Antibiotics only help in bacterial infections. So done. A kind of straightforward question. Question number 23. What is an example of asexual reproduction? Okay, asexual reproduction. It means no two parents are involved. Asexual means no two parents are involved. It means no gametes are involved. It means no male and female gametes, they are not involved. Okay. Let's see. A single bacterium dividing to produce two genetically identical bacteria. Very true. But we have to rule out B, C, and D. A mammal giving birth to 4 offsprings. Mammal giving birth to 4 offsprings and giving birth? Of course, no. Rule out. Why? Because it's a mammal and it has to do a sexual reproduction where the gametes are involved. A female bird laying 6 eggs which will hatch into the same species. Okay, again, not applicable. Female bird, sexual reproduction involved. Eggs are being produced and same species are being produced. Okay, a tomato plant producing fruits which contain many seeds. Very interesting. Wherever the seeds are there, of course, they are the result of the sexual reproduction. So cross means we are eliminating. So A is the correct option. Let's go. Okay, 24. The diagram shows, let me make it a little, what should I say, zoom in, make it small so that we can see. Okay, the diagram shows parts of 2 different plants, 1 and 2, of the same species. Okay, this is interesting. There are 2 different plants, but they are same species. The transfer of pollen between the flowers of these plants is shown by the arrows labeled P and Q. If you see, this is plant number 1, this is plant number 2. Okay, so there are transfer of pollen from this flower to this flower. This is P. It means the pollens are transferred from flower of plant number 1 to the flower of plant number 2. And in second condition, if you see, the pollens are transferred from one flower to the other flower, but on the same plant. Yes. Okay, now what is the question? Which arrows show cross-pollination? Cross-pollination. And which transfer of pollen would produce the most variation in the offsprings? Okay. Now, if you see, uh, the question is of two parts mainly. That which plant is showing cross-pollination, and the second part is asking you where the the most variation in the offsprings will be found. Okay, cross-pollination. So where is cross-pollination? If we go back, if you look at P, the pollens are coming from plant number 1 and they are going to plant number 2. So they are actually showing you cross-pollination. But if you think about Q, they are not showing you cross-pollination. So they are showing you self-pollination. Cross-pollination means when the pollens are transferred from one plant to the other plant, but of the same species. That's called cross-pollination. Okay. Then what is the second question? Transfer of pollens produced a lot much variation in the offsprings. If you look at Q, the pollens are going from this flower to this flower on the same plant. So this to this, the plant is same. The variation will not be expected so much. But if you look at P, where the pollens are going from one plant to the other, but of the same species, but maybe the plants are at a distant and different places, and because of the environmental conditions, they are growing differently in terms of growth, vigor, etc. So the variation is more expected in P. So looks easier because if you go for A, P only, and P. So P seems the correct answer, but let us see what about B, C, and D. If you read them, I think I already explained. So I think I should just do it straightforwardly. So P is the A is the correct answer, and I gave you the reason also. Oh, we reached 25 finally. Which substance is a hormone? So we have to talk about a hormone that is involved in the development and regulation of male secondary sexual characteristics. Okay, male secondary sexual characteristics means the characteristics when a male gets 13, 14, 15 years of age and the body shows changes in terms of growth. For example, the deepening of the voice, the muscles development, the mustache, etc. Hair, facial hair, and the private body parts, hair growth, etc. So, which hormone is involved in the development and regulation? So, if we talk about the hormones, again, it will be a very straightforward question. Those who revise carefully and regularly, of course, they will directly go for D, that is testosterone. So it will be D, but why we are eliminating A, B, and C? Why A, insulin is not at all responsible for secondary sex characteristics in males because it is involved in blood glucose concentration regulation. Glucagon, again, blood glucose concentration regulation. Lactase is not a hormone, it is an enzyme. So A, B, C, we are excluding. '26. Which statement describes the net direction of the movement of a substance across the placenta? Okay, so what you have to do is you have to see like which statement is actually telling you or describing the direction of movement of a substance across the placenta. So placenta is the attachment of a fetus or an embryo to the uterus of mother. If it is attached to it is a blood connection between mother and the fetus. So if it is like that, what do you think? What is the movement of the substances across the placenta? Is it carbon dioxide moves from the mother's blood to the fetus blood? The carbon dioxide is moving from fetus blood to mother's blood. So eliminating. Is it glucose moving from the fetus blood to mother's blood? Again, it's opposite. Is it glycogen moving from the mother's blood to the fetus blood? No, we're not talking about glycogen here because basically the placenta is for the movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide and glucose movement or any waste product movement between mother and the fetus. So we're not talking about glycogen, which is the stored form of the glucose, which has nothing to do with the fetus blood at the moment. Is it urea moving from the fetus blood to the mother's blood? Yes, because urea is being produced by the fetus after all the biochemical processes, and it has to go out of its body through the placental blood to the mother's blood, for example. So 26D. 27. The diagram shows the human female reproductive system. Many times you have seen in the biology book, and you must have studied all the different parts of the human male and female reproductive systems. Which label, wherever the labeling questions are there, I suppose that the students should do it very quickly because these questions, they can give you a very solid, to the point and quick marks. So which label identifies the uterus? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Is it D? So if you look at A is ovary. If you look at B is fallopian tubes. If you look at C is uterus. If you look D, cervical opening. So very easy. C. 27 C. That was a very straightforward question. Which methods can transmit HIV? HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus. And if you look at the options, you have been given 3 options, 1, 2, 3. Hugging a person infected with HIV, sharing a needle with a person infected with HIV, using a plate that a person infected with HIV has used. So when you were doing all about sexually transmitted infections, for example, you must have seen that HIV is not a virus which can simply transmit from one person to the other through physical physical contact. Rather, it transmits through sexual contact or through fluid contacts, for example. So simply hugging a person, no. Sharing a needle with a person, yes, because it might contain a virus and it can contaminate the blood and it can go to the other person. Using a plate that a person is infected, no. simply using a plate and eating in that plate, etc. No. So we have only one option, and so we should go for not A, not B, not C. We will go for D. Okay. Question number 29. Which chromosomes can be found in a single sperm? A single sperm is a male sex cell or male gamete. So which chromosomes can be found? I again assume and expect my students to go directly to the answer. Why? Because it is a very, 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 very super easy question. Is it XX? Not at all. Is it XY? X and Y? No, it can be X or Y. It cannot be X and Y. So this and is very important, my dear. Now see, the question is simple, super easy, but because sometimes we are under the stress of exam, we make silly mistakes. If you see this option, X and Y, yeah, at a very simply at a glance, a student might choose it. Why? That a human has two different types of chromosomes, X and Y, but they're not asking you about the types of chromosomes the human male has. They're asking a single sperm, what it has. It has either X or Y. It means it can have X or it can have Y, not both of them. So C, X or X, again, we will eliminate. So you will have D, X or Y. Now look at this or, and. Please be very careful. The examiner can trick you at multiple places with these small kind of words or terminologies where the question or the concept is very easy, but we can get confused. Number 30. Why are lymphocytes, white blood cells, talk about white blood cells, are the only cells that produce antibody proteins? Okay, lymphocytes, B and T cells. Why they are the only cells producing antibodies in our blood. So A, B, C, D. We have to be very careful. Lymphocytes express all the genes in the nucleus, do you think? No. All the genes cannot be expressed by a single cell. The particular genes are expressed by a particular type of cells. Lymphocytes have twice as many genes as other cells. No, it has as many genes as other cells. You cannot have different number of, you should say, chromosomes or genes in different cells and then lymphocytes, if you're comparing, for example. Other cells do not have the genes for antibodies. No, other cells have genes for antibodies, but they are not expressed. Look at this. Very, very interesting. Other cells do not have the genes for antibodies. No, they do have, but they are not expressed. They will be only expressed by lymphocytes. So here we go. The genes for antibodies are only expressed by lymphocytes. So now you know we need